Subscribe to Wikisana.
Welcome, dear viewers, to our format Natural Medicine. Today we are talking about a topic that, in my opinion, should be dear to all of us. What about the health of our children? Are they getting sicker and sicker? I am speaking to the leading doctor of the Sonnenberg BioMed Center in Schwelbrunn. Alexandra Kotthaus is a specialist in general medicine and a specialist in psychiatry and psychotherapy. Stay tuned for an important topic. Hello, dear Alexandra.
Hello.
Nice to have you with us. Thank you. I am also impressed by the diversity of knowledge and the comprehensive view that I already felt in the preliminary conversation. It is also a topic that really concerns me again and again, because in my perception, it has really changed, that the children are mentally and physically sicker, that I even experience 10-year-old children who have suicidal thoughts. I think it is an important topic that we also look at. What can we all contribute to this?
Yes, to make it short. Yes, our children are getting sicker and sicker. This is also said by current or less than a few years old statistics. Mental illness and psychiatric illness are on the one hand. In the last few years, it has actually been the case that the hospital stays of children between the ages of 10 and 24 have increased. Kindern in Anführungszeichen 10 und Kindern und jungen Erwachsenen 10 bis 24 Jahre zugenommen haben. For girls, it is even more serious than for boys, up to 26%. This means that diseases such as depression, self-injury, and hospitalization due to suicide attempts have increased drastically. Less from the psychotic form circle. This is one thing. Autism is no longer rare. Maybe we should take a look at which centers are always popping out of the ground. Autism centers, breast cancer centers, and fertility centers. This is also a sign that all these things are no longer a rarity. But also chronic diseases in children are becoming more and more frequent. And I think it can't be that doctors are only being trained in this direction. How do I treat this? In my opinion, there must be a tuft somewhere. Why is that? Why is that? I studied in the 90s. And you were aware of these tendencies and developments. Unfortunately, almost 30 years later, not much has happened in the direction of prevention. In fact, everything has become more autoimmune diseases, rapid increase in children with type 1 diabetes in the last few years. We have more cancer diseases in children. Topic diseases. This is the form circle with neurodermatitis, hay fever, and asthma. It is massively in the advance. Every 10th child in Switzerland has, according to official data, asthma. And 16% of all children have a disease from this atopic form circle. And it certainly has to do with various factors. But if you bring that to the point or condense it, it's just not a species-appropriate way of life, not a species-appropriate environment. And why are there fertility centers? And what is the consequence? We have a lot of premature births. The premature births are statistically much more common. Very often, at the beginning of their life, they need antibiotics. I don't want to say that's wrong. Of course, it goes without saying that the child survives and that everything is done. But why is there such a sharp increase in premature birth? Since when are there baby-intensive care units? It's not just that medicine has improved, but also that there is a higher need for it. But that can also lead to problems in later years of life. These children often wear glasses early and tend to have asthma. It's like a chain reaction.
When you mention all of this now, I was just thinking while you were saying that, what do we bring into these 25 minutes also as a message? There are so many levels. There are the psychiatric diseases, which have really increased a lot, and the other side, and I think what you said, the species-appropriate way of life, and maybe we can just go into the basic problem here. If we don't have that much time, what would you appeal to the mothers or to all of us, what we might be allowed to look at first or could change?
I myself would say that it took me about 20 years to really find out, or to have an idea about it. I don't even know how to verify it today. What is normal for a baby? And how long do you breastfeed? I asked myself this back then when I was pregnant. What is actually normal? How long do you breastfeed? And for me, it was clear over 20 years ago that I don't feed my child with bottled milk. And I don't want to demonize it now. If someone can't breastfeed, if someone is forced by external circumstances to give away the child earlier than necessary because money has to come in, then it's good that there is an alternative. But this alternative is not the best possible thing, which would be possible even if you can't breastfeed.
And what's your take?
But that's where it starts. What we give to the children is a product that is obtained from baby food of a different kind, with a different protein, with a different sugar composition than would be important for our children. On average, human milk has much less protein and much more carbohydrates, apart from the immune globulins that the child then gets. And of course, they are also in cow's milk. The mother cow also produces milk for her calf, but we have a mix of a lot of cows in there, but it's not like we're taking organic whole milk as a substitute. That's not a good substitute, that's clear to everyone, but it's picked apart and only parts of it are taken. And then there's measuring. Then you have to put in B1, then you have to put in this and that. And then you take artificial products, you add them so that the statistics are correct again, so that the child is not undernourished. Then you have to add omega-3 fatty acids. Then there's rapeseed oil in there, also in the organic sector. Rapeseed oil was not intended for human nutrition. In the 1970s, it was still an engine oil. There are things in there that are not digestible for us, that challenge our liver. And that's where it actually starts. I always say I'm also a generation of baby boomers, so to speak. And shortly after me came the limit where a lot of massive advertising was made for baby food and later also for small jars. But my mother, the breastfeeding was not supported either. At least she added a little carrot juice to this baby milk. And the mothers then fed self-cooked food. And I know others who somehow got oatmeal with a raw egg. They got homemade food from decades of higher quality and more nutritious ingredients with, on average, fewer pesticides than now, 40, 50 years later. That's where the problem starts. And also the production of our food. I don't even know where to start and where to stop. I'm getting a little emotional about this story. But then in the 80s, it started jar consumption. Yes, I know. I thought I was doing something particularly good for my child because it's germ-free, and then my child doesn't get any bad infections. But if I make something that is not cooled, i.e. buy a glass from the shelf, then it is sterilized again, i.e. cooked again, and has a high loss of nutrients. And the company is usually not about that there is a lot of nutrients in it, but it definitely has to be sterile, because if a baby gets an infection, we're having a problem. That's why it's just a serious drop in nutrients when I buy jar food.
But now another question. If mothers are watching now, and maybe there is simply that you may not be able to breastfeed for some reason, and then you already have a bad conscience. I also heard that a substitute would be, for example, coconut milk. Is there a product at all as a substitute for these cow's milk bottle preparations? What would you advise if someone is watching now?
It depends a bit on how old the child is, but it's possible. Coconut milk itself is extremely fatty, but you can mix it with coconut water, avocado, and banana to replace baby food.
At what age, please?
That's hard to say. I do it very individually. I rarely have newborns, I have to say. Of course, very rarely. We come back to multi-layered areas. In Germany, the mother's protection or the possibility of the mother staying at home longer is easier than in Switzerland, for example. If the mother has to go to work earlier, and if you have to go to work and you want to breastfeed and pump, it's not without stress. But if it's possible to do it as long as possible, it's certainly reasonable. 70 years ago, not all mothers were able to breastfeed for ages. They also found their ways and possibilities. For example, if it's oatmeal for some, it's rice gruel. Before the 6th month, sensitization can take place more easily than afterwards. Whether these numbers are still relevant today, that was 20 years ago, I can't say, because so much has changed, and our children are no longer born unaffected. The next thing I notice is that parents are told that the child will turn yellow after birth. That's normal. It's not normal. The liver can't work fast enough to remove the fetal hemoglobin and to replace the, as I say, air-breathing hemoglobin, which is already overwhelming.
So the liver is already burdened in the womb?
Yes, but the message to mothers is that it's not solely the mother's fault. The bad food or the pesticides are also not the mother's fault. Just as the father lives and has lived before, it's also very important for the health of the children. They also have to take responsibility.
You said that mothers used to find solutions in the past also. I know that many young women don't even know whether they'll get this wisdom, or we don't even deliver these things. Then you could turn to you or to someone who sees the whole picture so that you can create the best possible conditions in this situation for the children.
Yes, and that starts when you know you want to have children, when you know you have the right partner. It starts significantly before pregnancy that you should take care of it. And then, of course, the risk of pregnancy complications, birth complications, children's diseases can be reduced. You can influence this.
So would you say that in today's world where we live, if a young couple says they want children, that they should both detoxify? What would you suggest? So that it is also specifically stated what you can do for the children's health.
Yes, a lot. It starts with both. Not just the woman to detoxify before the planned pregnancy. And not like I want to do a 6-week detoxification course. I already had such ideas, and actually, I still want to get pregnant this year. That's naive. excuse me if I say it directly, or I'll do a 10 chelate session. Not everyone can do that. But I have to say very clearly, if I want to have a really good detoxification and want to get the stuff out of my bones, you can't do that in 3 months. Sorry, but those who are pregnant now should not worry. You can do something at any time. In pregnancy, of course, I do not detoxification heavily, but you can still do a lot about the way of life and nutrition. And also children who are already there and who may not have been fed perfectly. You can do so much. Children can still regulate well. That goes much faster than with adults. What is a problem is the pressure from the environment. Grandparents would like to give a piece of chocolate or something. And everything in moderation can't be that bad. That may also be true for someone who is healthy, but for a child who already has neurodermatitis or asthma, it can simply keep the chronic inflammation running. And we have actually forgotten for several generations what is actually normal. And what is a balanced diet? You can also, if you have a reasonable kitchen machine. I always have frozen fruits at home. And something I have at home right now, if I have cashew nuts or whatever, I add them to the strawberries. Then I add a bit of natural sugar. And then I make ice cream. I have made that a lot for my children. That doesn't mean you have to live in total moderation, or that everything is about discipline. I know children who are incredibly motivated to get healthy. They do everything by themselves. Sometimes the parents get more relaxed. They say, no, I don't eat that. I had an 11-year-old who came, and I thought that could really be a juvenile psychosis. Always in his head. He didn't take his mother in his arms. He talked to himself. No contact to the outside. He dropped out of school severely. He had a metabolic disorder. He had nutritional deficiencies. He did it all by himself. He totally understood what I explained, although in the first session, he seemed absent or even walked through the doctor's office. After 6 weeks, he was like exchanged. He took his mother in his arms again and was eating strictly, with his own motivation, and the school grades have improved again. I see that again and again. Sometimes it depends on the environment. There are children who have a strong impulse to get healthy. And there are children who have almost lost their survival instinct. They are so often on the wrong side. It's not the mother's fault. Please don't get me wrong. It's an environmental and social problem, in my opinion. Also, what I see in organic milk or in ready-made jars, there is a famous company that advertises that they offer organic glasses, but they contain carbon dioxide and are not full-fledged, even if they are organic. And they are fed with things that irritate the brain and the appetite. Or the influence of the mother is that the children have a rhythm in eating. You don't have to carry around 1,000 things if you are on the road. The child can have 5 meals a day, but the constant eating and no appetite for the actual meal, also not how it should be. But also, there are environmental toxins. Some of them can be influenced. There is a part that goes under the hand because the companies say that people are becoming more awake. And they simply change the packaging and say, we don't have that anymore. A small change has been made to the molecule, and it is still in there. And these environmental toxins can be found in baby urine, in umbilical cord blood, and in the adult body. It all mixes together. The air quality plays a role. Let's go back to asthma. It can be stimulating as a trigger. We have several sources. Sometimes I am tired of saying that, but I want to say that it can be done differently. You can do something about it. We don't have to have sick children, and these diseases don't have to increase. But it won't come from above as a miracle. We have to do it ourselves and become aware of it. And other people have to deal with the pressure of grandparents, kindergartens, and birthdays. Sometimes you need a bit of strength to deal with it, or you can bake muffins with good ingredients and show it to others. Or you don't talk about it at all. It's also possible. It's not a loss or deprivation. It's actually an enrichment because we are healthier and the children can play normally again and can be happier and have less psychiatric diseases. And then it's bad for me when this food is put on such a pedestal by school medicine. They say it's a bad thing to expect a change in diet in a diabetic. You can't expect that. And I have people who didn't even realize that it's possible to get rid of diabetes and high blood pressure. School medicine. They can't do anything, even if I don't know where it comes from. 95% of blood pressure is officially idiopathic. That's a nice word. You don't know where it comes from. These are actually the things that cause most diseases in our so-called civilization. And from a biomedical point of view, they are the easiest to treat. In other words, patients who have been with us from young age, never had asthma, gout, high blood pressure, diabetes. The differences are quite blatant, but we are still the collection basin for everything that is difficult to treat, and in school medicine, not treatable at all.
If I may summarize all this as a confident message, because I was also able to experience that a mother who had a child with ADHS was able to get rid of Ritalin. It was a completely different quality of life. And what I find very important, and this is really close to my heart, is that a good diet doesn't have to be a suffering. When I had a camp with the kids, we often made bounties with natural ingredients, and they were just as tasty. But then I thought, it has enough nuts, and that was really a good meal. The kids don't have to forgo, or you make ketchup yourself. That's not a great art either. No sugar added. Or you make the French fries in the hot air fryer. There are so many possibilities. You can actually serve the kids almost the same as you are used to, what they love. And it's just full-fledged. And I just want to say there are so many possibilities because that's what makes mothers sometimes despair, which I also experience. They say, yes, that would be healthy, but they don't eat it, and that there's much more creativity possible.
It's a challenge. Mothers have the double burden. They work part-time, but they have the main task with household and children. And that's actually the harder part, not the part of full-time work. At some point, you have to invest energy into the system to get change. And that's not always easy. And I can see that. But sometimes it's very small steps. Like, I don't make the fries in the oven that are already soaked in fat, but maybe I also put them through a potato press that cuts the fries and puts them in the air fryer. Or sweet potato fries are often quite good for children too. And some things are easy. For some, you have to learn. And I like to take the example when you want to bring a pot of water to boil. Then I have to put a lot of energy into it to keep this state, so that the water stays hot. But then I only need a tea light. So sometimes it's like a mountain in front of you if you want to change something. But it's only for a limited time. At some point you have a new routine, and you don't always need more and more energy. You need a swing for change. If I accelerate in the car, then I have a high fuel consumption. But if I stay at that speed, then it's a steady consumption. And so it's the same with changing habits. Sometimes it's like a mountain in front of you on a mountain, but at some point the mountain has been climbed.
That's really a nice metaphor and a nice closing word, and I think it's nice that you mentioned that. Really, the mothers who are so burdened that in the end it can become a relief. Dear Alexandra, thank you very much for being here with this important topic. There is still a lot to talk about. We have given you some cutoffs, and luckily, we still have more shows. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Dear viewers, thank you very much for being here. I was once again made aware that my son is now big, but that we can all contribute, that we think about how we design food for the children who are not our own children. And how we live ourselves, of course. And I got a lot of suggestions again. Thank you very much. Goodbye.